The argument, Honorable Ivo, will now be, at what point do we make them heroes? You know, when they are in the now, a lot of people don't even the nation doesn't even see them as heroes.
Not making those gentlemen heroes. We are not talking about I'm talking about transition now. So I want to see a situation where the institutions, which as it were, are all very weak today. It's not you and I who will go and put those institutions up and hitting the ground again. You know, I want to see a situation where these same men, they should be able to put the institutions back again. They should be able to bring back ethical integrity. They should be able to create national values. So that by the time this is done, when it's time for Chamberlain, Maugbe, and your good self now to take over the reign of government, you will now be able to come and inherit a legacy of a nation you will be proud to call your own.
Two things I find.
Please kindly.
It seemed like the conversation that was had at the Senate yesterday fired your imagination or fired you up in terms of being optimistic about this country. Is that right?
Not necessarily because of the what took place in the Senate yesterday. My imagination of a new Nigeria has always been very positive right from when the man Buhari emerged because of his austere lifestyle, self-discipline, and the man that he is. A combination of him and Professor Oshibanjo, the vice president, actually gave me confidence that we are going to head somewhere. Because when you
are optimistic about the future.
Yeah, I was very optimistic. I have always been very optimistic.
But then again, when you say, for instance, that the presentation of some of the ministerial nominees could have overwhelmed the Senate, that's not being very, very kind to the Senate.
I said that if you listen to Senator Udoma, and that he displayed uncommon depth, and that when the issue of the PIB came up, I was expecting that they would have allowed him, because that is a very critical issue in our national development. They would have allowed him to enrich that conversation.
You know why I keep saying I see your point here? Because he's amazing at saying that, because we all watched it, and he spoke for almost about 15 minutes in comparison to others who spoke for instance, Dr. Ihanire, who spoke for almost 30 minutes.
Almost 30 minutes.
So you're of the opinion that they should have allowed him more time. They should have allowed him,
because that issue is very critical, not only to the Senate, but to the prosperity of this country.
But the Senate couldn't have been overwhelmed.
Yes, so should join on his conclusion that the Senate was overwhelmed. The Senate could not have been overwhelmed.
If the word overwhelmed is what you are looking at, I am seeing it from the point of semantics, that being overwhelmed could also be from the issue of the appreciation of the expertise that the gentleman displayed.
Not about their rules.
Well, if not about the rules, first and foremost, you were even acting in breach of the rules, if that's what you were talking about, because he came in as a ranking senator. He would have taken a bow and leave. But he didn't take a bow and leave. You subjected him to questions and answers. And if you have done so, what I'm saying is you will have had the patience to be able to allow him go through and take him through the whole route.
You know, apart from the PIB question on the PIB, do you think that some of the questions overall were questions that Nigerians would have loved to ask?
Yeah, these are questions. For example, there was another issue yesterday when, let me see, Udodoma said that moribund, that he is known to preside over and turn around otherwise moribund companies. He mentioned that he's been a chairman of Union Bank and I think USC. He said so. And I expected a follow-up question. Now he's coming in. The institutions today are more or less like being moribund, if you are not going to use that word again, I guess. And then we will need to know what strategies, what are the possible, considering his expertise in public and private sector, what are those things that he consider as strategic thinking or initiatives that he will bring to bear to be able to create these expectations, this hope that we are having as a nation.
Sometimes, you know, are we not asking a little too much from this Senate screening? In the sense that these people are not running for office. And unfortunately, there is no particular portfolio which we know that they're going to be attached to. That doesn't come with the list. Exactly. That doesn't come with the list. It is the president's prerogative to send him to wherever it is. And a ministerial nominee might be here today and there tomorrow. So of what bearing will it be if he speaks for 45 minutes and is not able to do any of the things that he says he can do?
There are two issues there. For example, prior to this screening of yesterday, commencement of the screening yesterday, the leadership of the Senate and House of Representatives met with Mr. President. And I expected that part of that discussion would have been a mutual synergy. Mr. President, can you give us in confidence, who are you having for finance, who are you having for this? Well, not necessarily public information. Now, by the time the Senate President announced yesterday that, oh, we all have your resumes, so a committee will have sat back to look at the content of these 10 persons, for example, the one of yesterday, the 10 persons, their resumes, and now use it against the background of what Mr. President must have hinted there. Then they will have taken those people from that point. So what is the essence of the screening? The essence of the screening is intended to bring out not necessarily whether the person is qualified. Before the president nominated anybody, the person ab initio is constitutionally qualified to be a minister of the Federal Republic.
In addition to that, you know, some of the questioning, it looks as though it was streamlined. For instance, some of them who had defense background, questions were restricted to defense. People would have thought, wait a minute, why don't you ask questions based on other things? Because previously we've seen people who have been moved from Ministry of Foreign Affairs to information and things like that.
Yeah, that would have been a function of this when Aupe threw up that issue of
the portfolio
and all of that. Such issues, if you wanted to make it no longer business as usual, will have formed part of the discussion with the press. Can you please hint us who is going where? That this will also help us in the conversation, in the screening. And then they will come back and have a small think tank committee that will be able to look at the resumes of these individuals, you know, along with the hints the president gave, okay? Now, what will be the outcome of that screening or that conversation will have now been a thinking note for the Senate. So when the time for the oversight will come, they will now use it, and that will have formed part of the performance evaluation template. If you are in the Ministry of Agriculture, you are able to do well, and there's someone new to the Senate, or there's someone new to the National Assembly.
It brings me to another question. Because you see, in analyzing this, we've looked at it in simple altruistic terms. Okay. These gentlemen have been brought forward, women, beg your pardon, I didn't add women to that. Gentlemen and women have been brought forward to come and work for the country based on their knowledge and expertise. But we also know that there are political considerations to this. How much of politics do you think comes to play in terms of ministerial nominees and their screening?
Well, this particular one, I want to say that as long as it's a democracy where the vehicle is, of course, is politics, and the outcome naturally, we can say the outcome, the recruitment process must have some element of partisanship. But that does not take away the fact that you do still have people who were calling on merit. Another man said yesterday that he's been out of politics for quite a while. He said so when he left the Senate, that he was in corporate practice, you know. And that is not to mean that he was called up because he's an APC person. No. So I am saying that what happened yesterday has also helped to throw up the essence, the significance, the import of the leadership recruitment process, that we should always go out. The best may not be the best in the circumstance, but we should make attempt to let the nation, let people realize that we are ready and willing to throw up our best in every circumstance.
That is in the leadership recruitment process. On the part of the president, yes. On the part of the Senate.
Then on the part of the Senate, the partisanship will definitely be there because you have people from the respective, the senators from the respective states. And we do apologies to every public elected public officers. It's still this leadership recruitment process. How did I come here as a member of the Channels family? How did I come here into the House of Assembly? How did I come here into the House of Representatives?
That was why I was asking the quality of questions that emanated on the day. Were you satisfied with the questions?
So at the end of the day, the issue of the partisanship can never be, you cannot underplay it. Because all those senators, they must have had words from the governors that go this way and go that way.
Did you see that yesterday?
Well, even if it was not spoken, but it was through gestures and in fact from the previous day before the previous, it is there in the body language.